Well, I think the next thing I want to do is get her wired and see if I can get the motor to at least fire off for the first time in a few years since when I bought the truck as a parts motor. So trying to diagnose if I'm going to use the wires on this from the original chassis. If I'm going to steal the wires out of the cuda, because that actually is 5.7 motor harness that was in, well, that 6.1 Hemi is the same harness for an aftermarket system. But there's things like I'm keeping the fuel tank in that truck. I'm keeping a lot of the drivetrain things. So I'm leaning towards using the old harness because there's a lot of the original wiring in that frame and things that way. But for tonight, what I think I might do is, before I get to painting the pinstripes or anything on this two-tone, and now that it's been painted, like I said before, you demask when it's wet, and there's no edge here. You can't even feel the edge on the paint. It's almost gone because you demask it wet, and the single stage edge will like roll into the other edge. So I've got some vinyl pinstriping. I'm just going to throw a quick little vinyl pinstripe on this paint while it's wet, and that way, and then if I decide to keep it, I'll probably pull it off and do it in paint and make it more permanent. I am leaning towards a wheel option with a red pinstripe around the bead or the outside of the rim. Those rims are hideous, don't look at those. So yeah, let's throw some stickers on it just for fun, and let's see what some stickers are going to look like. It is the weekend after New Year's. I pulled her over out of the way here. I threw a vinyl pinstripe on that brake line, trying to decide if I want to do it permanently in paint. So I'm putting that on there, which I think I do like. Most when you get further away and kind of glance at it, it works really well. I think the new wheels and the idea I want to do with the wheels and tires is going to help pull all that together with just a little hint of red in the wheels also. You can also notice that I have this horrible rubber trimmy stuff. It's just literally on there with tape right now, just kind of pushing on there just for an idea. I absolutely hate that stuff. I kind of despise it. But period correctness and trying to, even though that stuff is kind of late 80s, 90s, I am going to be going with some bullhide spray on rockers in color matched material from about that line down. I am planning on driving this a lot, and I don't want a bunch of rock chips and tearing it up. That material is sandblast certified, chemical resistant to liquid deicer, liquid salt, gasoline, and diesel. You can pretty much take a hammer and a chisel and beat on it and almost not hurt it, unless you get it, between the metal and the material and chisel it off. It doesn't come off. Excuse me. Got a tickle in my nose. So I'm trying to figure out something to do for that bottom break point where the material is going to be, because the material is just going to end with kind of a hard line. Even though it's painted, you would still kind of see it. So I'm thinking about putting that between it. I use that stuff, crap, whatever you want to call it. It will be the last thing I do apply. You realize there is chrome that goes around all these windows. So you have chrome here. There is the chrome drip rail that I'm going to try to put back on, and that chrome drip rail will go there. There's that ugly guy again. Don't look at him. And so then with the chrome front bumper, chrome door handles, it may all pull together nicely. Back bumper is going to be black because my poor budget can't afford to make that chrome. Oh, on the back I did get another little decal, which I think came out looking great. I'm also trying to decide if I want to put red around the chrome, or red around the gold to brown brake in the back also. So we will see how that works. She's got her little hatch open. I said the roof came out. That came out really nice and smooth, nice and flat, nice and shiny, just like the hood. For a daily driver, this is looking really nice. If we notice over here on the floor, looking at our piles of mess of wiring. This is all the wiring out of the Daytona truck that we used as the frame, and trying to decide how much of that wiring we're going to use. With this new motor and everything going in the cuda up here, I could pull the wiring harness and computer out of that. I guess that Gen 2, 3, whatever, 5, 6, 1 Hemi will communicate and does everything it needs for this truck's Hemi. But I'm also using the factory fuel tank. I already left all the wiring and everything on this frame for taillights and headlights. And the body module is up under on the frame on that, or the engine module. And then in the interior, I have an aftermarket heating. Pretty much, I mean, headlights, taillights, and a wiper switch. So I don't know how much of the interior wiring I need. I'm going to look at that here in a few minutes, and we'll pull that in. Little update on the cuda. We'll get on that here in a little bit. I've had to order a lot more parts that I wasn't planning on ordering. To make that motor communicate with this, I need all new harness. I'm still waiting on my oil pan so I can do the rear sump oil pan on this motor. And being that the amount of changes and things that we're doing, it's one of those things, since we're doing that, we're going to do even more. It's still fun to fire this up sitting here on the pallet, but I think for right now I'm going to do is we're going to move the Sweptcharger over here, get it in the middle of all our wiring, and let's see if we can get this thing to fire off, get that motor to run off. That motor hasn't ran in a few years since I bought the totaled truck. And it'll be kind of exciting to see if we can get that to run. And Eddie Murphy, little trading spaces. You can keep me company while we're going. All right, let's move this and see what we get. All right, so after staring at all our wiring here, this is a fairly simple harness, but it wants almost a 3-inch hole to drill this into the firewall for that grommet, and I just can't bring myself to drill a 3-inch hole through there. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull the wire out through here for the body module. I already tucked it out. I'm going to plug all this in over here and see if I can run the car sitting in a chair out here to make this go vroom vroom out here. I've got the body module here. Everything's kind of labeled and ready to plug in, so that should be fairly quick and easy. There's a handful of small plugs that I'm not sure what they are. Like, wow, that's something. So let's plug all this in, see what wires I want to keep, what wires I don't want to keep. Isn't that freaking awesome? Let's open the hood so I can work on it. It's just, don't do that in a windy day outside. So, all right, let's see if I can get this wired up this way. All right, so we've got our power hooked up here. We have to have power going to our fuse block there. And like I said, we got this whole harness kind of hung out on the outside and got the steering wheel and gauges and things. Let's see, don't have anything touching. Clearances are there. I had to get underneath, and I think I have it in park. So I've got the transmission in park. There's also no drive line hooked up, so I'm not worried about it taking off on me or moving. Which I do have a new drive line. It's one of those over there. But anyways, so I'm nervous as shit. But I don't have anything in the belts. I put a alligator clip to the ground wires off of this harness, tied into there. This is just sitting on a rag. Nothing's in there. The belts are clear. Okay. This is the brake switch, so I think if it's out, it's not pushing brake. So if that's pushed in, that would be brake. We have our throttle here. So there's our throttle. So that's that. Well, let's see here. Oh, I hear relays clicking. Relays just clicked. Relay just clicked again. Put the key to the accessory position. Oh, dash lights are on. It's in park. Key on. Lots of noise just happened. Lots of relays are clicking. Let's twist the key. Let's have some, please. Oh, oh. Yeah! There you go, girl. Get some oil pressure. Nice and high. It hasn't ran in years. Well, there you are. I did check, it did have oil in it before we did this mess. No radiator, obviously, so I can't run her too long. The little 5.7 tick has started to go away now that's been sitting for a little bit. I am happy, happy, happy. All right. So now we have to figure out how to put all this together in the frame. Well, that is really, 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 really cool. Apparently we have lots of checky engine things. I'll be you. Oh, that's a bird word. Little Cameroon. Ha 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 ha. Awesome. All right. Well, I am not going to even bother with trying to strip the wire harness out of her to put it in this. I think I'm going to sit here, cut out all the wires that aren't plugged in and aren't used, and try to decide if I'm going to drill a big hole through the cab to drill that in. Beef jerky time. Oh, cool. This is exciting. I gotta do it again. Let's do it again. You want to do it again? I do. All right, let's do it again. Key. It's alive. She's alive. She's alive. She's alive. 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 Die. That is awesome. Awesomes, awesomes, and awesomes. Very much, very awesome. Well, now I just have to figure out where I'm mounting stuff. If I'm cutting these fenders up a little bit in here to mount that, or what I want to do. Alright. Let me tear it apart and figure out what to do. Woohoo! Well, we have stripped. That's rat's nest down. Pretty much pulled all of that out. But the problem that I'm still having is the wires that are coming through this loom and which goes to the pin versus what doesn't. They give such a good connection. I might just have to drill a big ass hole in my cab to get that through. I'm not using these gauges, so there's a lot of even these wires I don't need. The part of me wants to almost put that gauge up under the dash somewhere for like a communication thing to plug into. But anyways, that's progress where I'm at. Alright, I've decided to drill a big hole for this harness plug. And since this has that nice rubber boot, we're going to put it under the fender, above the tire, right up there. So it'll be basically directly below this cowl. And that puts it right in here. So if we put it there, put this center hole right about there, it should go right about there. Let's see what we get. Yeah. One big old hole. No going back. Alright, so we've got the fuse box loosely sitting here. I'll make some sort of mount off that peg and figure out something to mount it. I've got body ground made here. We've got a motor ground off the factory ground that way. The original positive wires hooked up and connected here, but that's somewhat loose. Our harness comes up over. I did put the brake booster in so that that is mounted, and so I know where my clearances are. The computer module is, or for the motor, the engine module is plugged in there. I still have this little temporary ground hooked up. I'll make sure to keep that wire out of the belt so nothing's touching there. So I'm probably going to make some, I'll be bolting this down and mounting this over here in a second. I just noticed the belt, oh, it has like a little rust mark from when it's been sitting forever and a day in one position. On the inside, we have our rat's nest tied up in here. The steering column, I am using this column because it has tilt column, the wipers are hooked up to it, and the column has tilt. The ignition key goes on the side. The steering wheel, I'm using the original 66 steering wheel, so it'll have a nice big white wheel. This will all get covered up and tied to the dash that way. Basically, we've got our factory plug harness plugged in. The reason the shifter's in here, this has the overdrive button, but it's a momentary button, so it kind of tells us on off when it comes to that. So that will be hooked up. We've got our brake switch. Probably hold the camera off the side as I'm looking at things. So that's that way. And then of course we've got to have our plug for plugging in diagnostics and that type. That should be right there. That'll be tucked up under the dash. So let's turn on the battery and see if it will start again. 12.6 on the jump starter. Turn the key on. Gauges light up nicely. No bus. Well, of course it's not a bus. It's a truck. Does it start? Fires right up nicely. Gauges are doing nothing. So I've probably lost a ground or something. I did put a new ground in over here. And I've wired a ground there, and I've wired a few other grounds to it. So I do have good grounds, but I may have to go through this and see what I'm missing. Let's see if the throttle Well, honestly, I'm not that discouraged by it, simply because I'm not using those gauges at all. I have all aftermarket gauges. It was just nice having factory operations to see how it would work and run. Motor sounds really nice now that it's fired up a few times. You can't even, that little tick that had when it was first starting, I kind of figured it would do that. These, like I said, it's been a couple years since that motor ran. All right. Well, no bus gauge. That's doing nothing. Which, like I said, I'm not really that worried about it. Just one more thing to tear apart. So now I get to figure out where I'm going to tie up stuff, put things in. And realistically, I could throw a radiator in it and figure out its brakes and almost drive it. But we're a long ways from that, but it's a huge step and kind of exciting that way. See what else I get done for the day. Well, I just had the radiator in, took it back out. This fits really well for the radiator. The upper hose fits right in there. The tranny cooler, I'm going to cut some brackets and make a little mount for it right over here. I'm just going to need to shorten these hoses a little bit. Shorten those back. As far as the fuse panel, kind of modified this bracket. It's got a little bolt in here that's finger tight. I'm in the middle of making a little bracket right here. It's going to come across the fender and mount that. That'll have that nice and pinched in the corner there. I should have the cover to cover that. That'll keep that nice and clean and out of the way. Right out of the way of the radiator. Power, the brake booster and everything goes there. Probably going to make like a battery mount or something over here and put the battery here. I was going to put the battery over there, but I think I'm going to make some sort of metal box and put the battery right there in this corner. So I'll just lengthen battery cables and all that kind of fun stuff and shove them over here. I already took the heater box and I've rough mounted the heater box that goes inside, so I have room for it and where the wires are going to go for it in that corner. That's where that ugly hole is, but the grommet stuff will fill that in, so that'll look just fine. So yeah, I've got this little bracket right here, piece of metal I just marked. I will cut that real quick, drill a hole in it, make a bracket. Let's get this mounted and get the radiator on. It's getting a little late on Saturday. I had a couple service calls I had to run into town to take care of, so I had to leave my girl. But I think that's pretty good for a day though. I'm real excited that the motor runs, key fires it right up, so not too bad for a little day project. It'll be coming along, and I think tomorrow I'll keep just plugging away on some little things, see what I get done. What's on the boob tube now? Oh, some guy is pulling an old Ford. God, how's he going to pull that out? A little YouTube going on. They're gonna pull that out and make a run, huh? All right, good for them. Well, I'm gonna work on this while they work on that. I got my little bracket made up for my fuse panel to mount to, so that's rattle canned and drying. I've started sticking some other pieces and parts together. We stuck the heater box in, got the hose and grommets fit there. We've got the heater hoses nice and tight. They'll fit up in there and be nice and clean. I made this nice little pocket here when I drilled these holes, when I rough mounted and rough fit that in, and got the box made where it fits. I ended up having to make a little notch out in here. That's actually for the hoses, for the defrosters. So the defroster hoses are there. I need to drill a hole underneath for the condensate drain, so I need to mark that and take the box back out again. But I figured I'd show a lovely confusion of confusion. You know, if one step forward, one step back, look at these nuts and fittings, or the AC lines you got to get to. This bottom one underneath, right there. Figure AC runs around 400 pounds of pressure, so this fitting's got to be really tight. You got to put some wrenches on it and reef on it. And I made this nice little pocket to keep it nice and clean looking right next to the hinge here, and didn't give myself any parameters for putting hoses or putting wrenches on that to tighten it up. So kind of pimped myself in a painful situation. And then to put matters worse, your TXV's got to go right there. That's actually what screws on it. And you've got to get that screwed on. And yeah, so I might have to make myself a wrench just to get that tightened up and put on. And then you got these lovely guys up here that are just they're going to get that going. I gotta be honest, this has been more entertaining than me getting anything done. They're actually slowing me down. So that's what that ends up being. But anyways, zoom in, zoom out. Can't control my zoom. I'm all zoomed over. I'm gonna pull this back apart, mark my little hole so I can drill my hole for my condensate drain. Get that mounted again. But this is my Saturday. I'm gonna go in and have myself a little din-din, a little sup-sup. Little nutrients in the belly. But yeah, that's where it is. We'll just keep plugging away, doing little things, and this guy's going to come along fairly quickly, I think. Very exciting. Peace out. Night, folks.